Chinedu leaned against the gate of the Atakanal estate, the rough metal cool against his back. The evening air was quiet, except for the distant hum of traffic from the main road. His eyes scanned the long driveway that led to the sprawling mansion. The lights inside glowed faintly through the large windows, and he could hear faint laughter from one of the upper floors. It was the kind of house that made you feel small no matter how big you were. He wasn't complaining, though. The job as a gateman had saved him. It gave him a roof over his head and enough money to survive. And more importantly, it kept people from asking too many questions about who he was and where he came from. Chinedu wasn't the kind of man who liked to talk about his past. The less people knew, the better. His peace was broken when a sleek black car zoomed up the driveway and screeched to a stop in front of the gate. The driver's door swung open, and Saad stepped out, frustration written all over her face. Her bright red dress clung to her like it was made just for her. She slammed the door shut and marched up to Chinedu. "Open the gate," she snapped, not even looking at him. Chinedu didn't move right away. "Good evening, madam," he said calmly, his deep voice steady. Saad shot him a sharp look. "Evening, Chinedu. Now, can you open the gate? I'm already late." Chinedu nodded and turned to unlock the gate. As he pushed it open, the car's engine gave a loud sputter and stopped. Saad froze mid-step, turning slowly toward her car. "No, no, no," she muttered, rushing back to it. She yanked the door open and tried to start the engine again, but it just gave a weak cough and died. Chinedu watched quietly, his arms folded across his chest. He could tell from the way she slammed her palm on the steering wheel that she wasn't used to things not going her way. "Why now?" she groaned, stepping out of the car and kicking the tire lightly with the pointed toe of her shoe. She turned to Chinedu, her hands on her hips. "Do you know how to fix cars?" Chinedu raised an eyebrow. "A little. Let me see." Saad stepped aside as Chinedu walked over. He popped the hood and leaned over, examining the engine. She watched him silently, tapping her nails against her arm. He moved with ease, his broad shoulders filling the space. "Looks like the battery's loose," he said after a moment. "I can tighten it, but you'll need a mechanic soon." "Just fix it so I can leave," she said quickly. "I'm already running late." Chinedu didn't say anything. He grabbed a wrench from the small toolbox he kept by the gatehouse and got to work. Saad shifted her weight from one foot to the other, glancing at her phone every few seconds. "Why are you always so calm?" she asked suddenly. Chinedu paused and looked up at her. "What do you mean? You're always so serious, quiet. Don't you ever get angry or excited about anything?" Chinedu gave a small smile and turned back to the engine. "There's no need for all that. I just do my job." Saad scoffed. "That's boring." He didn't respond. A few minutes later, he stepped back and wiped his hands on a rag. "Try it now." Saad slid into the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine roared to life. She let out a sigh of relief and looked up at him. "Thanks." "You're welcome, madam." She rolled her eyes. "Call me Saad. This madam thing makes me sound old." Chinedu hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, Saad." She smiled, a small, satisfied grin, before driving off through the now open gate. Chinedu watched until the taillights disappeared into the night. Then he closed the gate and went back to his spot, leaning against the cool metal again. The quiet returned, but it wasn't the same. Saada's words lingered in his mind, and for the first time in a while, he wondered if being serious and quiet was really all there was to his life. The next morning, Saada's best friend, Ngozi, arrived at the Atakanal estate. Her car was just as sleek, her outfit just as expensive. But where Saada's energy was fiery and restless, Ngozi was calm and calculated. She stepped out of the car gracefully, her heels clicking against the stone driveway. "Good morning," she said to Chinedu as she approached the gate. "Morning," Chinedu replied, opening the gate for her. Ngozi paused for a moment, studying him. "You're Chinedu, right?" "Yes, madam." She tilted her head. "How long have you worked here?" "About 2 years." She smiled faintly. "You must be very patient. I hear Saad gives everyone a hard time." Chinedu chuckled softly. "She's not so bad." Ngozi raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. She walked through the gate and up to the house, her heels clicking all the way. Inside, Saad was waiting for her in the living room. Finally, she said as Ngozi walked in. "You took forever." Ngozi waved her off. "Traffic. What's your excuse for being late yesterday?" Saad groaned and flopped onto the couch. "My car broke down. That Gateman, Chinedu, had to fix it." Ngozi smirked. "Oh, so the mysterious Chinedu finally speaks?" Saad threw a pillow at her. "Don't start. I'm just saying," Ngozi teased, sitting down beside her. "He's kind of intriguing, isn't he?" Saad rolled her eyes. "He's a Gateman, Ngozi." Ngozi shrugged. "Still, he's not bad to look at." Saad laughed. "You're hopeless." The two friends settled into their usual rhythm, talking and laughing about everything and nothing. But as the day went on, both of them found their thoughts drifting back to the quiet man at the gate. Neither of them said it out loud, but something about Chinedu had caught their attention, and neither of them was ready to let it go. That night, the estate was quiet again, but Chinedu wasn't leaning against the gate. Instead, he sat in the small gatehouse, flipping through an old magazine he had read at least 10 times. His thoughts were far from the pages. Sada's question from earlier still echoed in his mind. "Why are you always so calm? Don't you ever get angry or excited about anything?" It wasn't the kind of question he was used to. People didn't usually ask him about himself. Most of them only saw him as part of the background, a fixture of the house, like the gate he opened and closed. But Saad was different. She had a way of looking at him that felt like she was digging for something, trying to understand him. He didn't know if he liked it or not. The sound of light footsteps broke his thoughts. He looked up and saw Saad walking down the driveway, her figure outlined by the dim security lights. She wasn't dressed like earlier. This time, she wore a loose sweater and jeans, her hair pulled back into a ponytail. She looked less like the fiery, high-society daughter of Mr. Adekunle and more like a regular girl sneaking out of her house. Chinedu stood as she approached, his brow furrowing slightly. "Madam." "Saad," she corrected, waving a hand. "I told you to call me Saad." He nodded slowly. "Okay, what are you doing out here?" "It's late." She shrugged, shoving her hands into her sweater pockets. "I couldn't sleep. Thought I'd come out for some air." Chinedu glanced toward the house. "Does your father know?" Saad rolled her eyes. "Of course not. He thinks I'm in bed, like a good little girl." Chinedu leaned against the doorframe, folding his arms. "You shouldn't be out here alone." "Relax," she said with a smirk. "I'm still on the property. Unless you think I'm going to get kidnapped in my own driveway." "You never know," he said simply, his tone serious. Saad tilted her head, studying him. "You're always so serious. Don't you ever just relax?" Chinedu didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked past her, his eyes scanning the dark corners of the estate as if expecting danger to appear. Finally, he said, "Relaxing doesn't do much for me." She laughed softly. "You're really something, Chinedu." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, though. Saad leaned against the wall of the gatehouse, looking up at the stars. Chinedu stayed where he was, watching her out of the corner of his eye. "Do you like this job?" she asked suddenly. "It's fine," he said. "Fine?" She turned to face him. "That's it." He shrugged. "It's a job. Pays the bills. But don't you want more? I mean, don't you have dreams? Goals?" Chinedu's jaw tightened slightly. He didn't like talking about himself. "Dreams don't matter when you're just trying to survive." Saad frowned. "That's a sad way to live." Chinedu didn't respond. He didn't need to. She wouldn't understand. Over the next few nights, Saad made a habit of sneaking out to the gatehouse. Sometimes she came with questions, her curiosity about Chinedu seeming endless. Other times, she just sat nearby, enjoying the quiet company. At first, Chinedu thought it was strange, even reckless. Why would someone like her, a billionaire's daughter, spend her nights talking to the gateman? But the more they talked, the more he found himself looking forward to her visits. She had a way of making him forget, even if just for a little while, about the weight he carried. One night, she showed up with 2 bottles of soda. She handed him one and plopped down on a stool outside the gatehouse. "Why do you always sit out here alone?" she asked, opening her drink. "It's my job," he said simply. "That's not what I mean," she said, taking a sip. "Don't you have friends? Family?" He hesitated, his grip tightening around the bottle. "Not anymore." Saad raised an eyebrow. "What happened?" "It's a long story," he said, his voice low. She studied him for a moment, then leaned back against the wall. "You're a hard nut to crack. You know that?" Chinedu allowed himself a small smile. "Maybe some things are better left unsaid." Saad rolled her eyes but didn't push further. Instead, she changed the subject, telling him about her day and how her father had scolded her for skipping a family dinner. Chinedu listened, nodding occasionally. She had a way of talking that made even the most mundane things sound interesting. A week later, Ngozi came to stay for the weekend. As usual, her car pulled up to the gate, and Chinedu opened it for her. "Morning, Chinedu," she said with a small smile. "Morning, madam." She paused, looking at him closely. "Do you ever smile?" He blinked, caught off guard by the question. "Sometimes," she smirked. "I'll believe it when I see it." As she walked up to the house, Chinedu couldn't shake the feeling that she was watching him more closely than usual. There was something about her gaze that made him uneasy, though he couldn't quite put his finger on why. Inside, Saad and Ngozi were catching up over breakfast. "So," Ngozi said, cutting into her pancakes, "are you still sneaking out at night?" Saad froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. "What are you talking about?" Ngozi smirked. "Don't play dumb. I saw you the last time I stayed over. Late at night, creeping down the driveway like a thief." Saada's face reddened. "I wasn't creeping." Ngozi leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Then what were you doing?" Saad hesitated, then muttered, "Just talking." Ngozi raised an eyebrow. "To who?" Saad avoided her gaze. "No one." Ngozi's eyes widened. "Oh my God, it's him, isn't it? The gateman. Keep your voice down." Saad hissed, glancing toward the kitchen door. Ngozi's smirk grew. "I knew it. I knew there was something weird about the way you looked at him." "It's not what you think," Saad said quickly. "We're just talking." Ngozi leaned forward. "Really? Just talking?" "Yes," Saad snapped. "What do you think I'm doing? Writing him love letters?" Ngozi laughed. "Hey, I'm not judging. He's interesting." Saad rolled her eyes. "You're hopeless." Ngozi shrugged, still smiling. But in the back of her mind, she was already planning her next move. If Saad was spending her nights with Chinedu, there had to be something worth exploring. And Ngozi never could resist a little intrigue. That evening, Ngozi found an excuse to linger near the gatehouse. She told Saad she was going for a walk, but in truth, she was curious. She wanted to see what it was about Chinedu that had captured her friend's attention. When she arrived, Chinedu was sitting outside, sharpening a small knife. He looked up when he saw her. "Madam," he said, standing quickly. "Ngozi," she corrected, just like Saad had. "Call me Ngozi." He nodded. "What can I do for you?" "Nothing," she said, leaning against the gate. "Just thought I'd come say hi." Chinedu frowned slightly, unsure what to make of her. "Hi," Ngozi smiled. "You really are serious all the time, aren't you?" "I'm just doing my job." She chuckled softly, her gaze lingering on him. "You're an interesting guy, Chinedu." He didn't respond, focusing instead on the knife in his hands. But Ngozi wasn't deterred. She liked a challenge, and something about him intrigued her. She didn't know if it was his quiet strength or the way he seemed so guarded, but she was determined to find out more. For the first time, Chinedu felt like he was being pulled in two different directions. Sada's presence had already disrupted his carefully built routine, and now Ngozi was stepping into the picture. He didn't know what they wanted from him, but he had a sinking feeling that his quiet life was about to get a lot more complicated. The days passed, and things around the Adekunle estate grew tense in ways Chinedu couldn't quite understand. Saad and Ngozi, who usually laughed and talked loudly whenever they were together, seemed to be acting differently. They were quieter, throwing each other strange looks when they thought no one was watching. Chinedu noticed it, but he didn't ask questions. It wasn't his place to get involved in their business. But that didn't stop them from getting involved in his. One evening, as Chinidu was finishing up some chores near the gatehouse, he heard Sada's voice behind him. "Hey," she said, her tone soft but insistent. He turned around to see her standing there, her arms crossed and a nervous look on her face. She was dressed casually, in jeans and a t-shirt, but there was something different about her. She wasn't her usual confident self. "Good evening," he said, nodding slightly. "Can we talk?" she asked, glancing around as if checking to see if anyone was watching. Chinidu wiped his hands on his shirt and gestured toward the bench outside the gatehouse. "Sure. What's wrong?" Saad sat down, tapping her foot nervously against the ground. "It's nothing serious," she began, then paused. "Actually, that's a lie. It's kind of serious." Chinidu frowned. "What is it?" She hesitated, then blurted out, "Ngozi's been acting weird." He raised an eyebrow. "Weird how?" "She keeps asking about you," Saad said, her voice low, like, "a lot. And she keeps finding excuses to hang around the gatehouse." Chinidu's face remained calm, but inside, he felt a flicker of unease. "What does she want?" "I don't know," Saad admitted, running a hand through her hair. "But it's making me uncomfortable. I think she knows about us." "There's no us," Chinidu said firmly. "We talk. That's it." Sada's eyes narrowed slightly. "You know what I mean. She knows we've been spending time together." Chinidu sighed and leaned back against the bench. "I don't think you need to worry about Ngozi. She's probably just curious." "She's not just curious," Saad insisted. "Ngozi doesn't do anything without a reason. She's up to something." Next day, Chinidu was on edge. Sada's words stuck with him, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. His instincts were proven right when Ngozi appeared at the gatehouse that evening, her usual confident smirk in place. "Good evening, Chinidu," she said, leaning casually against the gate. "Good evening," he replied, keeping his tone neutral. Ngozi tilted her head, studying him like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "You're not very talkative, are you?" "I'm just doing my job," he said. She laughed softly. "You always say that. It's like your favorite line." Chinidu didn't respond, but his grip tightened slightly on the broom he was holding. Ngozi stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Do you know why I came out here? To take a walk?" He guessed, though he knew that wasn't the real answer. She shook her head. "I came to see you." Chinidu's eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Because I think you're interesting," she said simply. "And I think Saad does too." Chinidu's jaw tightened. "Ngozi, I don't think this is a good idea." "What's not a good idea?" she asked innocently, stepping even closer. "Talking? Last I checked, that wasn't against the rules." He shook his head. "This isn't just talking, and you know it." She smiled slyly. "Maybe, but you don't seem like the type to run away from a little attention." Chinidu opened his mouth to respond, but the sound of approaching footsteps made them both freeze. A moment later, Saad appeared, her expression a mix of shock and anger. "What's going on here?" she demanded, looking from Ngozi to Chinidu and back again. Ngozi shrugged, her smile never wavering. "We're just talking. Isn't that right, Chinidu?" Chinidu nodded quickly, his voice steady. "Yes, we were just talking." Sada's eyes narrowed. "It didn't look like just talking." Ngozi laughed. "Relax, Saad. You're acting like you own him or something." "I don't," Saad snapped. "But I don't like people playing games." Ngozi stepped closer to her friend, her tone turning sharp. "And what about you? You've been sneaking around here every night, talking to him like it's some big secret. You think I don't notice?" Sada's face flushed with anger. "That's none of your business." "Oh, but it is," Ngozi said, her voice rising. "You're my best friend, Saad. You think I wouldn't figure out what's going on?" Chinidu stood silently, unsure of what to say or do. The tension between the two women crackled like electricity, and he felt like he was standing in the middle of a storm. "Nothing is going on," Saad said through gritted teeth. "So stop making it a big deal." Ngozi smirked. "If nothing's going on, then why are you so defensive?" Before Saad could respond, Chinidu stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Ladies, I think you should both go back to the house. This isn't the place to have this conversation." Ngozi turned to him, her expression softening slightly. "Don't worry, Chinidu. We're done here." She walked off without another word, leaving Saad and Chinidu standing in awkward silence. Later that night, Chinidu sat alone in the gatehouse, replaying the scene in his mind. He couldn't figure out what he had done to get caught up in their drama, but he knew it wasn't over. Saad and Ngozi were like fire and ice, complete opposites but equally dangerous in their own ways. And now, for some reason, both of them had their eyes on him. As he stared out into the dark night, he couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get a lot more complicated. The tension between Saad and Ngozi simmered for days. The usually lively mansion felt like a battlefield, with sharp glares and clipped words exchanged between the two friends. Chinidu tried to keep his distance, but it wasn't easy when every glance from Saad felt like a warning and every smirk from Ngozi felt like a challenge. He didn't ask for this. All he wanted was a quiet job and peace, but now it felt like his life was spiraling out of control. One afternoon, Chinidu was sweeping the driveway when Saad appeared out of nowhere. She walked quickly, her face set in a scowl, and stopped just a few steps away from him. "We need to talk," she said firmly. Chinidu put down the broom, his brow furrowing. "About what?" "About Ngozi," Saad said, crossing her arms. "She's up to something, and I need to know if you're involved." Chinidu frowned. "Involved? How?" "Don't play dumb," Saad snapped. "She's been acting weird ever since she started hanging around the gatehouse." "What did you two talk about the other night?" Chinidu sighed, running a hand over his head. "She asked questions. I answered. That's all." "What kind of questions?" Saad pressed. Chinidu hesitated. He didn't want to add fuel to the fire, but Saada's glare told him she wasn't going to let it go. "She asked about you," he admitted. Saada's eyes widened. "About me? What did she say?" "She said you've been sneaking out to talk to me," Chinidu said slowly. "And she seemed jealous." "Jealous?" Saad scoffed, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in her voice. "That's ridiculous. She's just trying to stir up trouble." Chinidu nodded. "Maybe, but it's not my place to get in the middle of it." Saad stepped closer, her tone softening. "You're already in the middle of it, Chinidu, whether you like it or not." That evening, Saad and Ngozi's unspoken feud came to a head. They were in Saada's room, pretending to watch a movie, but the tension in the air was impossible to ignore. "You've been quiet," Saad said, her tone sharp. "Got something on your mind?" Ngozi smirked. "Why? Are you afraid I'll say something you don't want to hear?" Saad sat up straighter, her eyes narrowing. "What's that supposed to mean?" Ngozi turned to face her, folding her arms. "It means you're hiding something, Saad, and I think I know what it is." Saada's heart pounded in her chest, but she refused to show it. "I'm not hiding anything." "Really?" Ngozi said, raising an eyebrow. "Then why do you get so defensive whenever I bring up Chinidu?" Saada's face turned red. "Because you're obsessed with him for no reason. He's just the Gateman, Ngozi. Let it go." Ngozi laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're one to talk. You've been sneaking out to see him almost every night." "That's none of your business." Saad snapped, standing up. Ngozi stood too, her voice rising. "It is my business when my best friend keeps secrets from me." "What's going on between you two, Saad? Are you in love with him or something?" Saad froze, her breath catching in her throat. She didn't know how to answer that. Was she in love with Chinidu? The thought terrified her almost as much as Ngozi's accusation. I don't know," she stammered. Ngozi's eyes widened. "Oh my God, you are." Saad shook her head quickly. "No, it's not like that." "Then what is it?" Ngozi demanded. "Why are you so attached to him?" Saad didn't have an answer. She sank back onto the bed, burying her face in her hands. "I don't know," she whispered. I feel safe with him." Ngozi's expression softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. "Saad, this isn't a game. You're playing with fire." Before Saad could respond, Ngozi turned and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. The next morning, the tension exploded into full-blown chaos. Saad and Ngozi were eating breakfast with Mr. Adekunle when Ngozi, without warning, blurted out, "Saada's been sneaking out at night." Mr. Adekunle's fork clattered onto his plate. "What?" Saada's eyes widened in shock. "Ngozi!" "Don't act surprised," Ngozi said, her tone icy. "He deserves to know." "Deserves to know what?" Mr. Adekunle demanded, his voice rising. "Saad, what is she talking about?" Saada's face turned red, and she looked down at her plate. "It's nothing, Daddy." "It's not nothing," Ngozi said, crossing her arms. "She's been sneaking out to talk to the gateman." The room fell silent. Mr. Adekunle's face turned dark, and he slammed his hand on the table. "You've been doing what?" "Daddy, it's not like that," Saad said quickly, her voice shaking. "We're just friends." "Friends?" Mr. Adekunle roared. "With the gateman? Are you out of your mind?" Saad flinched, tears welling up in her eyes. "I didn't do anything wrong. You've embarrassed this family," Mr. Adekunle shouted, standing up. "Do you have any idea what people would say if they found out?" "Daddy, please," Saad whispered. But her father wasn't listening. He turned to Ngozi. Did you know about this?" Ngozi hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sir. I found out a few days ago." "And you didn't think to tell me?" he demanded. "I didn't want to make things worse," she said quietly. Mr. Adekunle glared at her, then turned back to Saad. "This ends now. Do you hear me? You are never to speak to that man again." "But Daddy," Saad started, but he cut her off. "No buts," he snapped. "I've been too lenient with you, Saad. That ends today." Meanwhile, Chinedu had no idea what was happening inside the mansion. He was sweeping the driveway, lost in thought, when Mr. Adekunle's car pulled up. The man stepped out, his face like thunder, and marched straight toward Chinedu. "Chinedu," he barked. Chinedu straightened up immediately. "Yes, sir." "What exactly is your relationship with my daughter?" Mr. Adekunle demanded. Chinedu froze, his heart racing. "Sir, we've just talked. That's all." "Just talked?" Mr. Adekunle sneered. "Do you think I'm a fool?" "No, sir," Chinedu said quickly. "I would never." "Save it," Mr. Adekunle snapped. "You're fired. Pack your things and leave this estate today." Chinedu's chest tightened, but he didn't argue. He simply nodded. "Yes, sir." As Mr. Adekunle stormed back to his car, Chinedu stood there, his hands clenched into fists. He didn't blame Saad for what happened, but he couldn't help feeling angry and betrayed. He had done nothing wrong, yet he was being punished for it. And deep down, he knew this was just the beginning. Chinedu packed his things in silence. It didn't take long. His life fit into a single duffel bag. He sat on the edge of the small cot in the gatehouse for a moment, his head in his hands. He had been fired before, but this felt different. This time it felt personal. The sound of hurried footsteps broke his thoughts. He looked up just as the door creaked open. Saad stood there, out of breath, her face flushed with worry. "Chinedu," she said, her voice trembling. "I heard. My dad fired you." Chinedu nodded slowly. "Yes, madam." Saad winced. "Don't call me that. Not now." He didn't respond, his expression unreadable. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." "It's not your fault," Chinedu said quietly. "Your father made his choice. But he wouldn't have done it if I hadn't. She trailed off, her eyes welling with tears. "I should have kept my distance. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Chinedu stood, towering over her but still radiating calm. "You didn't do anything wrong, Saad. We talked. That's all." "That's not how my dad sees it," she said bitterly. "He thinks I've disgraced the family." Chinedu sighed, his gaze softening. "Your father loves you. He's just trying to protect you in his own way." Saad shook her head. "This isn't love. This is control." The air between them grew heavy, the silence thick with unspoken words. Finally, Saad looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Where will you go?" "I'll figure something out," he said, his tone steady. "I always do." Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Ngozi stood in the living room, facing Mr. Adekunle. Her arms were crossed, and her expression was calm, but her heart was racing. "Why did you do it?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Do what?" Mr. Adekunle replied, not looking up from his tablet. "Fire Chinedu," she said. "What was the point? You think that's going to fix everything?" Mr. Adekunle's eyes narrowed as he set the tablet down. "Watch your tone, Ngozi. This is my house, and I'll do what I see fit." "You fired him because you're angry at Saad," Ngozi said, stepping closer. "That's not fair." Mr. Adekunle stood, towering over her. "Fair? Do you know what isn't fair? Having my own daughter disrespect me and embarrass this family. That boy had no business talking to her. They're both adults," Ngozi said. "Maybe if you stopped treating her like a child, she wouldn't feel the need to sneak around." "Enough!" Mr. Adekunle roared, his voice echoing through the room. "You don't understand what it means to protect a family name. People like you can't possibly understand." Ngozi's face hardened. "People like me? What's that supposed to mean?" Mr. Adekunle didn't answer. He turned and stormed out of the room, leaving Ngozi standing there, fuming. Later that evening, a black SUV rolled up to the gate. Chinedu, his bag slung over one shoulder, stepped out of the gatehouse for the last time. The driver greeted him with a nod and opened the back door. Before he could step in, a voice called out, "Wait!" Chinedu turned to see Ngozi running toward him, her heels clicking against the driveway. She stopped in front of him, her chest rising and falling as she caught her breath. "You're really leaving?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. "Yes," Chinedu said simply. Ngozi hesitated, then said, "This isn't right. You shouldn't be punished for something that wasn't your fault." "I'm used to it," Chinedu said with a faint smile. "But thank you." Ngozi bit her lip, her eyes searching his face. "Where will you go?" "I have some friends in town," he said. "I'll manage." She nodded slowly, then stepped closer. "Take care of yourself, Chinedu." He nodded, his gaze steady. "You too, Ngozi." She watched as he climbed into the SUV and drove away. As the taillights disappeared into the distance, she felt a pang of regret. She wasn't sure what it was about Chinedu that had drawn her in, but now that he was gone, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had lost something important. The next morning, chaos erupted in the Adekunle household. A journalist from a popular gossip blog had somehow gotten wind of the drama. The headline was splashed across the website, "Billionaire's daughter caught in scandal with Gateman." Saad froze when she saw the article on her phone. Her heart raced as she read the details. Somehow, the journalist knew everything. Her late-night visits to the gatehouse, her arguments with Ngozi, even Chinedu's abrupt firing. "Daddy!" she screamed, storming into the dining room. "Did you see this?" Mr. Adekunle was already reading the article, his face dark with anger. "How did this get out?" he growled. "I don't know," Saad said, her voice shaking. "But you need to fix it." "I need to fix it?" he snapped. "You're the one who caused this mess." "I didn't leak the story," Saad shouted. "Why would I do that?" Ngozi walked in then, her face pale. "What's going on?" "This," Saad said, shoving her phone in Ngozi's face. Ngozi's eyes widened as she read the headline. "Oh no! Oh no!" Saad repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Is that all you have to say?" "Saad, I didn't do this," Ngozi said quickly. "I swear." "Then who did?" Saad demanded. "Because it wasn't me, and it definitely wasn't Chinedu." "Enough!" Mr. Adekunle barked, slamming his hand on the table. "I don't care who did it. What matters is fixing this." Saad glared at him. "Fix it how? By pretending it didn't happen? Everyone's gonna know now, Daddy. You can't sweep this under the rug." "We'll see about that," he said coldly, picking up his phone. "I'll handle it." As he walked out of the room, Saad sank into a chair, her head in her hands. Ngozi sat across from her, her voice soft. "Saad, I'm so sorry." "Don't," Saad said, not looking up. "Just don't." The silence between them was heavy, filled with guilt and regret. For the first time, neither of them knew what to say. Meanwhile, Chinedu sat in a small room in his friend F's apartment, scrolling through his phone. He had seen the article too, and his stomach churned with anxiety. He had tried so hard to stay out of trouble, to keep his head down, but now his name was all over the internet. F walked in, holding 2 bottles of beer. "I saw it," he said, handing one to Chinidu. "Tough break, man." Chinidu nodded, taking a sip of the beer. "I didn't ask for any of this." "I know," F said, sitting down beside him. "But now that it's out, you have to figure out what you're going to do." Chinidu sighed, running a hand over his face. "What can I do? I've already lost the job." F smirked. "You could tell your side of the story. People love a good underdog." Chinidu shook his head. "That's not me." "Well," F said, leaning back, "then you better lay low for a while. This storm isn't going to pass anytime soon." Chinidu nodded, his gaze distant. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. His quiet life was gone, and there was no going back. The noise of Lagos buzzed outside, but inside F's cramped apartment, the air felt heavy with silence. Chinidu sat on a rickety chair by the window, staring out at the bustling streets below. His thoughts were loud, though his face gave nothing away. The article had changed everything. His name, once anonymous and forgotten, was now on everyone's lips. "Chinidu," F called from the small kitchenette, where he was frying plantains. "You need to eat, man. Sitting there like a statue won't change anything." Chinidu shook his head. "I'm not hungry." F sighed and walked over, holding out a plate. "You have to eat. You can't fight battles on an empty stomach." Chinidu glanced at the plate but didn't take it. "What battles, F? My life is already ruined." F pulled up a stool and sat across from him, his voice serious. "Ruined? No. Complicated? Yes. But this isn't the end, Chinidu. You've faced worse." Chinidu's jaw tightened. "This is different. My name is all over the internet. People are talking about me like they know me." F leaned closer. "So what? Let them talk. The truth is what matters." Chinidu scoffed. "The truth doesn't sell newspapers or blogs." F placed the plate on the table and crossed his arms. "You're right, but running away won't help either. What happens when someone recognizes you? What happens when your past catches up with you?" Chinidu froze, his hands clenching into fists. "Don't start, F. You know I'm right," F said quietly. "You can't keep hiding." The next morning, Saad sat in her room, scrolling through her phone. The article was still trending. Every time she refreshed her feed, another cruel comment popped up. "Disgrace to her family. How can a billionaire's daughter stoop so low? This Chinidu must have some serious charm." Her stomach churned. The words stung more than she cared to admit. She tossed the phone onto her bed and buried her face in her hands. How had things spiraled so out of control? A soft knock on the door startled her. "Who is it?" she called. "It's me," Ngozi's voice came through. Saad hesitated before saying, "Come in." Ngozi opened the door and stepped inside, closing it behind her. She looked uneasy, like she wasn't sure if she was welcome. "I just wanted to check on you," Ngozi said softly. "You've been quiet." Saad sat up, her expression guarded. "What's there to say? The whole world thinks I'm a fool." Ngozi sat down on the edge of the bed. "You're not a fool, Saad. You're just human." Saad let out a bitter laugh. "That's not how my dad sees it. Or the internet." Ngozi reached out and placed a hand on Saada's arm. "We'll get through this. Together." Saad looked at her, her eyes filled with doubt. "How? How do we fix this?" Ngozi hesitated, then said, Maybe we don't fix it. Maybe we just own it." Saad frowned. "Own it? You're joking, right?" "I'm serious," Ngozi said. "People are going to talk no matter what. So why not take control of the narrative? Show them you're not ashamed." Saad shook her head. "I don't know if I'm strong enough for that." "You are," Ngozi said firmly. "And I'll be right here with you." That same day, Mr. Adekunle was pacing his office, barking orders into his phone. "Find out who leaked that story. I don't care how much it costs. Just fix it." He hung up and rubbed his temples, his anger barely contained. His reputation was on the line, and he couldn't stand the thought of people whispering behind his back. The door opened, and Dr. Okoro, Ngozi's father, walked in. "You called me?" "Yes," Mr. Adekunle said, gesturing for him to sit. "We have a problem." Dr. Okoro sat down, his expression calm. "The article?" "Exactly," Mr. Adekunle said. "It's bad enough that my daughter is involved, but now it's spreading like wildfire." Dr. Okoro nodded. "It's unfortunate. But what do you want me to do about it?" "I want to know if your daughter had anything to do with it," Mr. Adekunle said bluntly. Dr. Okoro's eyes narrowed. "Are you accusing Ngozi of leaking the story?" "I'm asking," Mr. Adekunle said, "because someone in this house started this mess." Dr. Okoro stood, his voice cold. "Be careful with your words, Adekunle. My daughter may be many things, but she wouldn't betray your family like that." "And how can you be so sure?" Mr. Adekunle challenged. "Because I raised her better than that," Dr. Okoro said firmly. "You should focus on your own house before pointing fingers." The tension between them crackled, but before either man could say more, the door opened and Saad walked in. "What's going on?" she asked, looking between them. "Nothing," Mr. Adekunle said quickly. "Go back to your room." "No," Saad said, crossing her arms. "I want to know what you're talking about." Dr. Okoro sighed. "Your father thinks someone in this house leaked the story about you and Chinedu." Saada's face turned red. "And you think it was Ngozi?" "I didn't say that," Mr. Adekunle said defensively. "You didn't have to," Saad snapped. "This is ridiculous. Instead of blaming each other, why don't you focus on fixing the real problem?" "And what's that?" Mr. Adekunle asked. "You," Saad said, her voice shaking. "You care more about what people think than about your own daughter." Mr. Adekunle's face hardened. "Watch your mouth, Saad." "No," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm done watching my mouth. I'm done pretending everything's okay. You pushed Chinedu away because you couldn't handle the truth, and now you're blaming everyone else for your mistakes." "Saad," Dr. Okoro began, but she cut him off. "Stay out of it," she said, her voice breaking. "This is between me and him." The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Finally, she turned and walked out, leaving both men speechless. That evening, F found Chinedu sitting on the balcony, staring at the skyline. "You okay?" he asked, sitting down beside him. Chinedu nodded. "Just thinking." "About what?" F pressed. Chinedu hesitated, then said, "Maybe you're right. Maybe it's time I stopped hiding." F's eyebrows shot up. "Really?" "Yeah," Chinedu said. "If the world wants to know who I am, maybe it's time I showed them." F grinned. "Now that's the Chinedu I remember." Chinedu smiled faintly, but deep down, he knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Still, for the first time in a long time, he felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he could take control of his story. Chinedu sat on the edge of F's couch, his mind racing. His decision to stop hiding felt right, but now came the hard part, figuring out how to take control of a story that had already spiraled out of control. The words of the article haunted him, making him feel like a stranger in his own life. How could he turn this mess into something he could live with? F walked into the room, holding 2 mugs of tea. "Drink this," he said, handing one to Chinedu. "It's ginger tea. Good for thinking." Chinedu gave a faint smile and took the mug. "Since when did you become a philosopher?" F grinned, sitting beside him. "Since my best friend decided to fight back." "So what's the plan?" Chinedu stared into the tea, the steam rising in soft curls. "I don't know. I've never had to fight like this before." "Then it's time to learn," F said, leaning back. "Start with the basics. What do you want?" "I want people to stop seeing me as just the Gateman," Chinedu said quietly. "I want them to know I'm more than that." F nodded. "Good start. But you also need to make peace with your past." Chinedu's jaw tightened. "My past is what got me into this mess, and running from it hasn't helped." "Has it?" F countered. "Look, you can't control what people think, but you can control what you tell them. If you want to take your story back, you have to tell it your way." The next day, Saad was sitting in her room, staring at the walls. Her father hadn't spoken to her since their argument, and the silence in the house was suffocating. She felt trapped, both by her family's expectations and by the scandal that wouldn't go away. A knock on the door broke her thoughts. "Come in," she said wearily. Ngozi stepped inside, her face cautious. "Hey," Saad sighed. "What now?" Ngozi sat on the edge of the bed. "I wanted to check on you. You've been quiet." "I'm tired, Ngozi," Saad said, her voice flat. "Tired of all of it." Ngozi hesitated, then said, "I have an idea." Saad looked at her, skeptical. "Another one of your plans?" "No thanks." "Hear me out," Ngozi said quickly. "You said you wanted to take control of this mess, right?" "I said that because I was angry," Saad muttered. "I don't know if I can actually do it." "You can," Ngozi said firmly. "And you're not alone. We'll do it together." Saad frowned. "What are you talking about?" Ngozi smiled faintly. "You're not the only one people are talking about. My name's all over the comments too. We both have something to prove." Saad stared at her for a moment, then sighed. "Fine. What's your plan?" Ngozi's smile grew. "We tell the truth. All of it. On our terms." Saad blinked. "You mean like an interview?" "Not just any interview," Ngozi said. "We control the story. We make them see us for who we really are." Saad hesitated. "What if it backfires?" Ngozi shrugged. "It might, but at least we'll be fighting back instead of hiding." Chinedu was sitting on the balcony of F's apartment, the city stretching out before him. His phone buzzed, and he picked it up, frowning when he saw an unknown number. He answered cautiously. "Hello." Chinedu, a familiar voice said. It was Saad. "Saad," he said, his heart skipping a beat. "How did you get this number?" "I have my ways," she said lightly, though her voice held a hint of nerves. "I wanted to talk to you." Chinedu glanced at F, who raised an eyebrow but stayed quiet. "I'm listening." "I know things have been crazy," Saad said, "and I know you didn't ask for any of this. But I think we can fix it." Chinedu frowned. "What do you mean?" "Ngozi and I are planning to tell our side of the story," she explained. "We want people to hear the truth, and I think you should be part of it." Chinedu hesitated. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "It's risky, I know," Saad said quickly. "But this is our chance to take control. You don't have to hide anymore, Chinedu. You can show people who you really are." Her words hung in the air, and for a moment, Chinedu didn't know what to say. Finally, he said, "I'll think about it." "Okay," Saad said softly, "but don't take too long. This is bigger than all of us now." Over the next few days, Saad and Ngozi worked tirelessly to set up the interview. They reached out to a journalist they trusted, someone who wouldn't twist their words or sensationalize the story. Meanwhile, Chinedu wrestled with his decision. Part of him wanted to stay out of it to avoid more attention, but another part of him knew F was right. Running hadn't helped. It was time to stand his ground. When the day of the interview arrived, Chinedu found himself in a small studio, sitting across from Saad and Ngozi. The journalist, a calm and composed woman named Amina, sat on the other side of the table. "Are you all ready?" Amina asked, glancing at each of them. Saad nodded. "Let's do this." The cameras rolled and Amina began. "Thank you all for being here today. Let's start with the obvious question. What really happened?" Saad took a deep breath and started talking. She explained how she had started sneaking out to talk to Chinedu, how their conversations had been innocent but meaningful. She admitted that her father's reaction had been harsh, but that she understood his concern. Ngozi spoke next, explaining her role in the story and why she had confronted Saad. She admitted that she had been jealous and had acted out of anger, but she had never intended for things to spiral the way they had. Finally, it was Chinedu's turn. He talked about his past, his struggles, and how he had taken the job at the Adekunle estate to start over. He spoke calmly and honestly, his voice steady even as he shared the painful parts of his story. By the end of the interview, the room was silent. Amina smiled. "Thank you for sharing your truth. I think people will see you in a different light after this." Chinedu wasn't sure if she was right, but for the first time in a long time, he felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He had faced his fears, and no matter what happened next, he knew he had done the right thing. The interview aired 2 days later. At first, the comments were a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Some people doubted the sincerity of Saad and Ngozi's words, while others admired their courage. But the more people listened to Chinedu's part of the story, the more the narrative began to change. Saad sat in the living room, nervously scrolling through her phone. Her father's towering presence loomed in the corner of the room as he silently read the newspaper. The tension between them was as thick as ever. "Are you going to say something, Daddy?" she finally asked, unable to bear the silence. He lowered the paper, fixing her with a stern look. "What do you want me to say?" "That you watched the interview," she said, her voice trembling. "That you understand why I did it." Mr. Adekunle set the paper down and stood, pacing the room. "I did watch it, and while I understand why you wanted to clear your name, I still don't agree with how you went about it." Saad clenched her fists. "I didn't have a choice. You wouldn't listen to me." "I'm your father," he snapped, turning to face her. "You should have come to me first." "You never listen, Daddy," she shot back. "You care more about what people think than about what I'm going through." "That's not true," he said, his voice softening. "Yes, it is," Saad said, tears welling up in her eyes. "You're always so worried about our reputation. But what about me? What about how I feel?" Mr. Adekunle sighed, rubbing his temples. "Saad, I've made mistakes. I know that. But everything I've done has been to protect you." "Protect me from what?" she asked, her voice breaking. "From living my life, from making my own choices." He hesitated, then said, "From the kind of people who would take advantage of you." Saad shook her head. "Chinedu didn't take advantage of me. He treated me with respect. Something you never gave him." Her father's face hardened. "He's not one of us, Saad. He doesn't belong in our world." "That's the problem," she said, standing. "You think people like him are beneath us. But he's a better person than most of the people in your so-called world." She turned and stormed out of the room, leaving her father standing there, his expression a mix of anger and regret. Ngozi sat in her own living room, scrolling through the comments on the interview. Her father, Dr. Okoro, walked in holding a tablet. "You've been busy," he said, setting it on the table. Ngozi glanced at him. "You watched it?" He nodded. "I did. And I have to say, I'm impressed." She raised an eyebrow. "You're not mad?" "Mad? No," he said, sitting beside her. "You spoke your truth. That takes courage." Ngozi blinked in surprise. "I thought you'd be upset." "I was at first," he admitted. "But then I realized something. You're not a child anymore. Ngozi, you have the right to make your own choices." Her eyes softened. "Thank you, Daddy." He smiled faintly. "Just don't make a habit of stirring up scandals. Okay?" She laughed. "No promises." Chinedu was walking through a busy market when a man stopped him. "Hey, you're the guy from that interview, right?" Chinedu froze, unsure how to respond. "Yes, that's me." The man grinned, holding out his hand. "Respect, my brother. It takes guts to do what you did." Chinedu shook his hand, a small smile forming on his lips. "Thank you." As he walked away, he felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like he had to hide. Later that evening, Saad and Ngozi met Chinedu at a small cafe. It was the first time they had seen each other since the interview. "You're famous now," Saad teased as he sat down. Chinedu chuckled. "Not exactly the kind of fame I wanted." Ngozi smirked. "Fame is fame." They laughed, the tension between them finally easing. For a moment, it felt like they were just three people, free from the weight of expectations and judgment. "So, what's next for you?" Saad asked, leaning forward. Chinedu hesitated, then said, "I've been thinking about starting a boxing academy. Something for kids who don't have much." Ngozi raised an eyebrow. "Boxing?" He nodded. "It's what I used to do before everything. I want to give back, help kids stay out of trouble." "That's amazing," Saad said, her eyes lighting up. "How can we help?" Chinedu smiled. "You've already done more than enough." "No," Ngozi said firmly. "We're not done yet. If you're serious about this, we'll make it happen." Chinedu looked at them, gratitude filling his heart. "Thank you." Months later, the boxing academy opened its doors. Chinidu stood in the center of the small gym, watching as a group of kids practiced their jabs and footwork. Saad and Gozi stood by the side, cheering them on. "You did it," Saad said, nudging him. "We did it," he corrected, smiling. As the sound of laughter and punches filled the air, Chinidu felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The past was behind him, and the future was finally his to shape. This was a new dawn, not just for him but for all of them.